Namaste. While COVID-19 has taken away our physical freedom, it has set us back years and years in terms of growth and development as a country, as a state, and as a world. But it has done one more very insidious thing to all of us. It has got into our minds and affected our everyday function in many, many ways. Be it as individuals who are living under this lockdown and in fear of this pandemic, or be it as people who have been hospitalized because of the COVID-19 condition, or be it as people whose loved ones have been hospitalized under the COVID-19 condition. Whatever the case has been, it has got us thinking, it has set us off on various, literally, mind trips which we are struggling with and finding very hard to cope. Which is why we are here at Apollo Hospitals again, and with us is Dr. Shalini Janardhan, Senior Consultant Psychiatrist. COVID has actually got into our brains in more ways than one.
Absolutely agree. The main thing to be aware of is we are seeing a crisis and we are seeing a situation which none of us have experienced in our lifetime. This is a new experience for anyone, whether they're 6 years old or 96 years old. They have virtually never seen this before. And especially with the uncertainty around what is happening, what it means for every individual person, for a family or for society, it's understandable that it's having a lot of mental health impact.
Especially if we have been affected with a disease condition. Let's say I have and I'm hospitalized and I'm in isolation and I can't see my loved ones and I don't know what is going to happen next to me. And I am scared. How do I cope with this? What do I do?
Being taken unwell or hospitalized with COVID, yes, is a huge personal crisis for anyone. Quite simply because there is a huge amount of fear and uncertainty about what the outcome is going to be.
Half of me is convinced I'm not going to make it, that I'm going to die.
Some people may have had a previous experience of hospitalization or a health crisis, but the whole point for being admitted with COVID now is no one can tell with any certainty what is going to happen. It would be expected that anyone admitted with a COVID infection or a confirmed COVID infection to have a huge catastrophic emotional reaction. They might, on the one hand, feel extremely anxious, feel very panicked. They might, on the other hand, become very numb or go into denial or quite simply be able to fully take on board the enormity of what is happening. Or they might even over time become very depressed, very negative and bleak about what might happen. And all the more so, as you rightly pointed out, not being able to get the comfort of their family member and social group.
That physical contact of a hug or even a pat on the shoulder is very reassuring from somebody close to you, which the luxury of which you don't get in this particular condition, whether you're alive or even not beyond because of this.
Yes.
When in isolation, what else can the individual do? They can't be on the video phone or phone 24/7, I'm presuming.
Yes.
What calming techniques can we give them for the mind?
Broadly, I would be talking about stress relaxation techniques. So we recommend things that first of all have helped individual people get through stress before. So there is some people who believe a lot in the power of prayer or in the power of chanting. By all means, turn to that. If that's something that gives you mental solace, that is something that you need to be going into to let your mind get to a place of Zen where you're not constantly worrying and looking at what's happening to you right now in hospital. For other people, that might involve meditation or pranayama, or it might even involve thinking back to positive memories about, even about books you've read or things that have been a more positive place in your life. Again, if someone is well enough and able to actually engage in things like books or music or other media, I would say absolutely focus on that. Distract your mind as much as you can. Because if you're in hospital, if you're being treated, though you will be worrying about what's happening, worrying about it 24/7 is not going to change what happens. It might even actually be detrimental. So to come to a point of acceptance that this is where I am, this is the care and the treatment I'm getting, mentally going into a spiral is not going to physically affect me.
If you end up being hospitalized, speak as much as you can and distract yourself for the rest of the time and sleep.
Absolutely.
This is all.
Sleep definitely, but otherwise distract your mind. Tell yourself repeatedly that worrying, brooding, and fretting are just going to spiral. They are not going to lead to any practical problem solving.
I also want to tell people to somewhere get their affairs in order during this pandemic. I feel it is important that people who have built things and who have created things actually document and get things in order, because we don't know whom this is going to affect.
True, you're absolutely right. I think there's a delicate balance between hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. As a broad rule, I will say that applies in any case, not just in this COVID time, but all the more so now in this time of COVID. Carpet has been pulled out from under our feet this year, and what we took for granted has gone away. So it does, I think, involve, as you're saying, even before anything happens, planning for what next steps will be taken if something should happen, and going on if there is a confirmed infection, if hospitalization, to bear in mind and start to prepare rationally for the worst that might happen.
Many are also worried about doing that in case, the superstitious. In case I do something like this and then this comes and affects me. What tool would you give them to get over that and get prepared?
I've told friends we often spend a lot of time discussing marriages and functions. We spend almost no time dwelling on funerals and deaths in our own future. So I think it's about confronting that as a culture, maybe we tend to avoid things and not talk about this. The second thing I would tell people is avoidance in the long term is not psychologically very healthy, and a superstitious avoidance of thinking about, planning about things that may have to be faced no matter what is not healthy. What I would tell people that sometimes it actually helps your mind cope if you have clearly and systematically planned out things, because that can help you rationally accept the inevitable. Because sometimes the inevitable happens no matter what.
And not just because of COVID-19, because other underlying comorbidities or other underlying health conditions or road accidents haven't changed.
Absolutely.
I mean, the numbers have come down,
Absolutely.
Incidents of road accidents, but the other life-threatening things still exist.
Have not changed, and that's why it's a superstition. It is a twisted belief that if we don't think about it or we don't plan about it, it won't come to pass, which logically we know that's not true. And
just
so it's
cross your fingers and sign your...
It's healthier to just say, well, let me make things clear, because there is no way I can control, or there are limited ways where I can control what happens in the future.
The other biggest thing that is not in our control is even the ability to visit a loved one if they are in isolation in hospital, or if they're in the ICU in hospital. Family is not allowed to visit, is not encouraged to visit. How does family cope with it? How do we cope with it if a father or a son or a brother or a sister is there?
Again, it's heartrending, because it is as difficult for family and as filled with the same uncertainty and fear as it is for the patient. In terms of coping with that, a few strategies, such as much as possible to try to use other methods of communication, which again may be limited depending on the context. There may be a situation where, due to the treatment reasons or due to the patient's own needs, even that is not accessible. So if someone is that unwell, or if they're ventilated, they may not be in a position to communicate at all, and at least the solace or the comfort the family has by being in the same room as the loved one is taken away, because they cannot even see them face to face.
Yes.
So apart from trying to communicate by remote methods, really the only other thing is to try to pull together as a family, to of course be in close contact with the treating team, and I think that way it's a huge amount that the nurses, the paramedical staff and the doctors are trying to do to bridge this gap between patient and family, because everyone is very sympathetic to the fact that this is a unique situation.
By transitive property of is equal to relation. That is the only thing I can think of, if not directly, at
Yes.
least indirectly, through whomever is in contact with them.
Absolutely.
That could provide comfort.
Yes.
But there is one more layer of people, very close friends or very close colleagues, who cannot visit in case something like this happens.
Yes.
They also have to deal with it from a distance. But going even further, in case of death by COVID-19, it's only the immediate family that is allowed to go for a last rites ceremony wherein also they cannot touch the body. The next circle is not even allowed to come in.
Yes.
So today we look at our phones, we get messages. My mother has passed away. My uncle has passed away from COVID-19. You cannot go. We are a culture where we say, "What do I do?" And one person goes and books the burial, one person goes and prints the invitation, or we do everything for everything. What do we do? What do we do?
World over, not just here, world over, people are trying to understand how we adapt to this change of a funeral without the rituals, because the rituals are part of how we cope. The rituals are part of what we do in that acute time where everyone is in shock or in grief. There is no correct answer or no
Tools.
clear answer at the moment. Tools, I think, still comes back down to this one lifeline we have about other devices to communicate, with phone calls, with messages, with video chat, which is at this point in time the closest we are able to maintain social communication. So as of now, restrictions means those are the only tools we use, but it's about putting that to full action, being there, perhaps making more of an effort to be in contact with someone who's bereaved. Really putting yourself out there to say, I'm here for you. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to tell me how it has been? I'm here if you just want someone to listen, or if you want any other help whatsoever. I think that feeling of support is important, especially because unfortunately we are seeing a lot of stigma around families and households that have been affected by COVID. They are feeling very cut off, and to some extent have other people pull back from them because they have been touched by this awful disease.
But would that not be probably because the people who are pulling back from them are afraid? Now, COVID is universal. It is not choosy. It doesn't play favorites.
Yes.
It can happen to the person who's pulling back also. This is because they're afraid.